All right. Now to take a look at Blender's interface buttons everywhere. So I know it can be overwhelming, but don't be overwhelmed. We're going to be clicking every single one of these buttons for the most part and see what they do. But for now, let's get a brief overview of the interface because, man, is it confusing at first glance. So you could break down the interface in 4 or 5 different parts. We have one window here, a second window down here, another one right here, and another one right here, and then the header bar at the top. So you can see it's basically just comprised of different windows. Now, this main window right here, which has the beautiful default cube, a camera, and a lamp, and a grid floor, is called the 3D view. Now, the reason that's so big, you guessed it, is because we're going to be doing most of our work in this 3D space. This is where we're going to be modeling, animating, and a bunch of other stuff. Now you can see that's set to this view. If you click on this little button right here, you could see 3D view. Sweet. All right. So we know what this window is. What in the world is this window right here? This right here is the timeline and the timeline. If we left click and drag, you could see we could move through time. How sweet is this, guys? We are basically creating and manipulating a world, a 3D world. Super cool. Now you can see that this is set the timeline right here. You can see it set timeline. And the timeline basically allows for you to animate your objects through time. Sweet. The next window right here is called the Properties window. And this one basically lists a bunch of different properties. You can see we have a wrench icon right here and a little pyramid-looking cone icon right here and a bunch of other stuff. Here's a beach ball nuclear radioactive looking icon. Now, what do these all do? Well, they basically have different properties and options for different things that we're going to do in Blender. Again, we'll take a look at all of these later. And you can see it's set to properties right here, the properties window right there. And then the last one over here, this is the outliner. Now, the outliner is not really talked about that much, but it's quite useful, especially when you come to having scenes with a lot of things. The outliner basically outlines everything in your scene, and here you could easily navigate and select those items or hide those items from your scene suite. And once again, you can see it's set to outliner because right here it has the outliner selected. And then the last kind of window or header, I guess you could say, is the header up here. We have a file where you could save your blends and a bunch of other options. We also have pre-made layouts. So right now we're on the default layout. We're on the layout. Ladies and gentlemen, we could go to the modeling layout. You could see it switches things around a little bit. The sculpting layout again. This is where you sculpt or make things look like clay and play around with them. And then, of course, animation layouts, rendering, compositing, etc. Now, once again, don't get overwhelmed with this because I know just starting out it can be overwhelming. But it's quite simple, as we'll go through this course. We're just going to stay probably throughout the whole course in the layout and just change the windows. Now you could actually change these windows by going over here and selecting a different kind of window. For example, if we want to make this the timeline, we could select timeline right here. And now we have the timeline right there. How cool is that? We could also split our windows and add or remove some windows to split a window. If you just go to the bottom or the corner of any window, you could see your mouse turns into a crosshair. So we're going to go to the bottom left, right, here, left, click, and drag to the right, and it will split your window. And now and then we could change this window to something else. For example, let's change it to the Properties window, which we had over here. And then to merge windows, all you have to do is go to the crosshair on one of them. And if you left click and drag to the left, it will collapse it this way. And without letting go of your mouse, you could go to the right. And if you wanted to collapse that way, you can't. So you could decide which way it collapses and then just let go of your mouse and boom. We have the 3D view reports back in style. All right, let's change this back to the Properties window, and there we go. Now, like I said, this is the most used window in Blender. How can we maximize this without removing these windows? Well, we could do that simply by hovering our mouse over this window, hit Control Space Bar, and it will maximize just this window and minimize all the other ones. You could do that for any window if your mouse is. Hovered over it, Control spacebar will maximize it, and Control spacebar again will bring it back to this look right here. All right, so that's pretty much it's the next thing I want to just quickly mention. Like I said, we have a grid floor, and then we have a red line right here, which is the x-axis, as you can see right here, x, and a green line right here, which is the y-axis. But that's pretty much it for the interface. You could see it's comprised of different windows, and each window allows for us to do different things at different activities in Blender. All right, Alosi, let's go to the next video. We'll see you in the next one. Shoof for now. Over.